Make sure you check the descriptions for any important articles I may post, and think for yourself on the issues. But one thing that I like that I think has emerged since the 2016 election, or at least something that I've noticed more, is kind of the individual journalist, and it does help that there are, iPhones, and the technology is very readily accessible for people to have access to. So you can get people going into different mobs and protests, kind of reporting and showing. One, I mean, I can only imagine it's annoying to some people who are, deliberately going into different groups trying to stir up, videos, or if a dialogue isn't taking place in natural dialogue. But I think in a lot of the cases, people are just having a natural dialogue because that does seem the easiest. And instead of trying to, push people in a position and rumble and battle with them, you can just kind of ask a question. And a lot of times they'll just make their position clear. And if it's kind of jarring, I think that's clear to the viewers. So people put that out. But I think it's a positive because you get to see a non-mainstream media type of journalism. And instead of a big organization with maybe a certain agenda, you're having just individual people with whatever you believe their agenda is. And it seems to be a lot more clear that you can get better clips of what's actually going on if you want to look for it. Now, I think most people still continue to use mainstream media type organizations and just go that route because I think most people aren't as invested in politics as maybe others are. But it still gives the opportunity where you can see that a lot of the times the way different media outlets try and spin things isn't necessarily always the truth, or there's hints of truth, but it's not necessarily the whole truth. I would say that's more common, that it's half truths more than anything. Videotaping, I think, is also positive when it comes to these areas, as long as it's done lawfully, and normally it is because it is a public setting. But it also gives, because these situations can get violent and turn into a he said, she said, it's always helpful that everyone kind of has a camera on them, and that you can record and kind of defend yourself in that sense, and probably more of a legal sense, because you can get footage of what is actually going on, because it's just going to turn into a he said, she said if something happens. Or, it's always good to get that evidence if somebody is doing something wrong, because mob mentality can take over in a lot of these situations. And I think that's what people are starting to see with the rhetoric really being ratcheted up. I think starting with the far left and moving, rightward, it happens on both sides, but I think it's really starting with the left here. But I think it's great that a lot of individual journalists, just normal people with, who have, their phones or whatever, can go out and interview people and get other people's take who would not be on mainstream media. I feel like it's more of a positive than it is really clickbait. I think a lot of mainstream media can be clickbait at times, and clickbait is one of the, I'm not really sure how I feel about it, but I think it's fine if that's what people want to do and try and get clicks and engage people. I think people like to listen to dumb clickbaity stories that are kind of frivolous, even though both parties probably know what's going on. But I think when it reaches a certain point, it's too much. And I think that combined with mainstream media, and I think they got a bad rep. They can only say so much at once. There really isn't the chance for a long, in-depth interview all the time. But I also think they don't prefer it that way. I think they like kind of the back and forth battling, moving from one topic to the next. It probably sells a lot better. I think probably the individual journalism doesn't sell as well, maybe, but I think at the same time, a lot of people are being drawn to it because of the different truths that they see in the natural, organic conversations that are occurring. When these kind of these conversations are happening, I think it helps engage citizenry. I don't know why I'm saying citizenry. Just the populace in general, because I think the problem is lack of information, and people really don't have all the facts. They're more excited to go protest, and I think a lot of people can kind of shortcut themselves in their own thinking process when they say, "Oh, I protested, I stood up for this," and it's more, I think, beneficial for people to have conversation more than just protest, and I think helps create a healthier, better dialogue.